Our story this morning and our discussion or sermon is concerning David and Goliath. I'm going to read a section from the book of Samuel where this story is found. Very familiar, but I want you to try to follow along with the details that are mentioned. Jesse said to his son David, "Take to your brothers some food." And he outlines what the food is, some grain, some cheese. "And bring back word to me," David's father told him, "of how your brothers are doing." So David arose early in the morning. He left his sheep with a keeper. He took the things, he went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the camp of the army, and there was fighting and shouting. The Israelites and the Philistines had drawn up battle array, one against the other. David left his supplies in the hand of a keeper, and he ran to the army. He greeted his brothers. And as he was talking with him, there was a champion, the Philistine, Goliath by name, coming up out of the armies of the Philistines. And he spoke to them according as he had spoken to them before. And earlier in the chapter, it describes Goliath coming down and teasing the Israelites and taunting them. "Oh, you have this great God. If you're so great, come send somebody down here to fight me. You win, beat me, you can have the whole battle. It's all yours. We'll all surrender." He lied. So he spoke to them again, as he had day after day. And all the men, when they saw Goliath, they were dreadfully afraid. Then the men said, "Have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. And the man who kills him will be enriched with great riches. And the king will give him his daughter, the man who slays Goliath. And his house will be exempt from taxes for the rest of his life." David spoke to the people who he was with. "Is this what shall be done for the one who slays Goliath, this Philistine, and takes away the reproach of Israel?" The people answered to him, "Yes, this is what will be done for that man." And then David's older brother, when he heard what David was asking, was angry and aroused. He said to David, "Why did you come down here and leave your father's flock out in the wilderness? I know your pride and your insolence. You've come down to see the battle." David said, "What have I done? There's no cause for your anger." And he turned to someone else and asked that person about the situation. And he turned to someone else. And the word spread, and Saul, the king, heard. And he sent for David. And he said to David, "This shall take place for the man who beats Goliath." David said to Saul, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go down and fight this Philistine." Saul said, "You're not able to fight the Philistine. You're a youth. This is a man of war who has been fighting wars from his youth." David said to Saul, "I keep my father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came to take a lamb out of my father's flock, I went out and I struck it. And I delivered the lamb from the lion's mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard, and I struck it and I killed it. Your servant has killed both bear and lion. What is this Philistine? He'll be like one of them, seeing as he has defied the armies of the Lord. Moreover, the God who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear, he shall deliver me from this Philistine." Saul said, "Go, and may God be with you." And then the part that comes up with our recitation, and I'll get to the intervening parts. It's a long story. I know it's a long lesson. The Philistine came towards David, and he said, "What am I, a dog that you come at me with sticks?" And he cursed David. And David said, I come to you. You say you will give my flesh to the birds. But you come to me with a sword and a spear and a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord, the God of hosts, whom you have defiled. This day the Lord shall deliver you into my hand. Amen. Our second lesson, if you have the order of service, you can follow along with the lesson in the sheets there. It's from the work True Christian Religion. And it gets to David and Goliath right down at the end. People who think their own intelligence could develop concepts about God, about heaven and hell, about spiritual things that the church teaches, do not realize that our earthly self is intrinsically opposed to our spiritual self. Our earthly self tries either to uproot any spiritual things that come in or else to cover them with false concepts that are like grubs that devour the roots of vegetables and grains. People like this can be compared to people who dream that they are sitting on eagles and soaring on high, or sitting on a Pegasus and flying over Mount Parnassus or Mount Helicon. And they are actually, in fact, like Lucifers in hell, who nevertheless call themselves children of the dawn. They're like people in the valley of the land of Shinar, who set out to build a tower whose top would reach to heaven. It's the Tower of Babel. They are as confident in themselves as Goliath, not foreseeing that he could be laid out, as he was, by a single stone driven by a sling into his forehead. I should say what outcome awaits such after death. They first become like drunks, then silly, finally brainless, and they sit in the dark. Be wary of such insanity like this. I love that the sun's shining in, but if I stand here, it really throws things off, like my eyesight. Welcome, good to see you all, and to the people out there in TV land. Nobody likes talking about war, right? We wish that all wars would be over. And yet, you turn on the television and maybe you want to watch a war movie. It's like there's something about war that's captivating. Nobody likes to have arguments, but raise your hand if you haven't had an argument in the last week or two. We all have something that we contend with and have to struggle with. And nobody likes to feel like what's going on inside their head should have to be a battle. But in fact, that's what the Lord has given us. He's given us the truth, and in fact, it's going to be fighting against our natural inclination to think we've got all the answers already. And that's what this lesson from TCR talks about, that people can come up with the idea that they could figure out the nature of God and heaven and hell and life after death all on their own. And they seem to themselves to be flying on the wings of an eagle or Pegasus. I'd like to fly on Pegasus, wouldn't you? Wouldn't that be great? Jump on Pegasus, take off. It'd be so much fun. That's the idea, is our own intelligence, like a horse, we can give it wings and it'll lift us up into heavenly things. No. You're going to lose that flight really quickly. Or like the people that built the Tower of Babel, people that can think, I can build up from my own thoughts and what I think the way to get to heaven. So I'm just going to build and build and build, and eventually my tower will reach to heaven. Or it ends with this story of David and Goliath. People who think that they can figure out how spiritual things work are like Goliath. Comes into battle, what was he, 9, 10 feet tall? I know I should be doing it in meters. He was really tall, 3 meters tall. Really huge. And we're told that he was of the ancient people of that area who were giants. There were giants in the land. You remember way back in Genesis when it talks about the giants that were in the land, the Nephilim. And you remember the children of Israel when they left and they were sent some spies into the Holy Land. They came back saying, there's giants in the land. There were actually these really big people. Goliath was one of them. And to have a sense of self-assurance that you've got it figured out, there's something in us that wants to believe that. Like, we're so smart. You think it's more now than it was back then? Do you think now that people have computers and so much scientific learning and so much things, internet, sharing all this knowledge, do you think we're that much smarter than they were back in David's time? Yeah. Do you think that our egos are better or worse? Do you think our pride and our self-intelligence is better or worse? Do you think people trying to figure out the nature of heaven on their own is more likely to happen now than it was at any other time because we have these other things? So up here I have 4 things that David took into battle. The stick, the pouch he put the stones in, the sling he used to slay Goliath, and 5 smooth stones. And you might not be able to see all of them. Believe me, they're up there. Well, the number 5 stands for just a little. The number 10 in the word stands for what the Lord has blessed us with, called our remains, or His gifts to us, the remnants of all the things that are His in us. So just a little bit of what is His, that's what 5 stands for. And you say to yourself, well, there's not 5 things up here. There's only 4. I mean, the stones, there's 5 stones, but stones, stick, pouch, sling. What's the 5th thing? David. So the Lord equips us. We're David. We're equipped with these things that are representative of the weapons of the Spirit against the insanity of Goliath. So my talk is called Beware of, what's it called? The insanity of Goliath. What do I call it? I don't even know what I'm talking about here. Sharing in Goliath's madness. I know what I'm talking about. I forgot the title. Sharing in Goliath's madness. We all want to share in Goliath's madness, but what does it say at the very end of our lesson? Be wary, therefore, of insanity like this. Let's just look at this crazy story, but it's got such a great ending, doesn't it? If you like violence, it's got a great ending. If you don't, it still has a great ending, but you don't maybe want to think about this young guy, David. We don't know exactly how old he was. This shepherd boy taking this mammoth sword of this giant and cutting off his head. It's not good for anybody except all of the Israelites who then had won that battle, that moment in the battle. And it's not good except for we all have to cut off the heads of our spiritual enemies. Don't be nice to those thoughts that come up in your head that are evil and false. Don't be nice to them. Well, I'll just think maybe I can do a little bit of sinning today because it's Thursday and I don't really have to think about church till Sunday. So, no. Chop it off. Chop off the head of evils and falsities. And where did the evils and falsities spring from? What is the head of all evil and falsity? The Word tells us there's 2 main things. Love of yourself and love of the world. Too simple, right? Okay, I'll narrow it down a little bit. It's John Reed and Naomi Reed and it's John. Do I need to list all of you guys off? You people? It's us. It's our love for ourself and ourself alone. That's love of self. And love of the world is control. To control other people by the things that we have. And so whenever we're just thinking about what we can do for ourselves and the thought starts developing, you have to ask yourself, is this the right thing to do? Is it a good thing to do? Or if it's not, then chop off the head of it. Say, oh, I'm just thinking selfish. What about my neighbor? Or what about the concerns for something other than myself? And love of the world, there's nothing wrong with loving the world, is there? No, there's nothing wrong with loving yourself, too. You have to have a good love of self and a good love of the world. But when you find that you're just so concerned with what other people are thinking and what other people are doing and how you're going to be placed in their thoughts or how you're going to get something, then you're trying to control the outcome of what is going on in the world. I've heard some people say, you know, what other people think about me, their business ends right here. Right at the end of my nose, right at the end. Like, you can't control, and stop trying to control what other people think about you. It's so hard, isn't it? But it's an aspect of the love of the world. So let's get back to the story of David. Here's David, he's a shepherd. He's watching his sheep at night. Oh, wait, that's the Christmas story. The shepherds do watch their sheep during the day and the night, and Jesse said to David, leave your sheep in the care of a watchman. And so David did. If I can stand a little bit more forward. Oh, I'm not supposed to stand more forward. I'm going to stand back here. I think that might help the lighting. A little bit higher up here. Looks all different. So there David has left his sheep. Now, you can tell from the rest of the story, David loved his sheep, right? He loved his sheep so much, he would be willing to go into the jaws of a lion or the jaws of a bear. I mean, that takes some sense of love for something other than yourself. And he said, a little bit later on, the Lord who gave me into the hand of the lion and the hand or the paw of the bear and the lion and delivered me, he will deliver me from this giant Philistine. So David was not exactly unexperienced with the things of war. He had fought wild animals. Which would you rather face if there's two cages and one is me and the other is a bear and a lion? Which cage would you rather get into? I would think you'd rather get into the cage with a man than a bear. Bears are incredibly strong. Incredibly strong. And so are lions. And they're kind of built to hunt and devour, right? Among other things. So these two things, this bear and the lion, they represent what is within us that also wants to tear apart all of our heavenly loves, all of our heavenly life, all the things that are like the shepherd in us, the strong things that want to take care of what's innocent, the sheep. And the Lord provided for David. The Lord is our shepherd. The Lord was the shepherd within David's shepherd that gave him to walk through the valley of the shadow of death and to fear no evil. For he was with him. And David said, the Lord's with me. He can deliver me from this Goliath, just like he did from the lion and the bear. Well, that comes up a little bit later. Let me go back a little bit to David showing up and sees his brothers. And he's hearing the rumors about what's going on. Rumors of war. How many of us like rumors? You're going to say you don't really like the rumors, but hey, let me tell you what happened to, you go, oh, it did happen. Oh, I got a secret about Val Jorgensen. You know what she did? Picking on the people I can see because I rarely see people in church. I hope that changes. And maybe I'll start picking on the people in the back rows too. Eric's volunteering. Let me tell you about what I know about Eric. There you go. So there's rumors going on. If you defeat, what happens if you beat this guy? You get the king's daughter. I mean, it's like a fairy tale. It's the typical stuff of you get the princess. You get No taxes. Who wants no taxes for the rest of your life, right? And other great things. You'll be a champion. And David was treated like that when he did defeat Goliath. But that wasn't why he was there. He just heard, well, what is this Philistine? And people are going to, and nobody is still going out to fight him with all the advantages of what you would get if you won? Nobody has the courage? So he hears this going on. He keeps asking questions. Is there something wrong with asking questions? You say no. David got in trouble. He asked questions, and his brother said, what are you doing asking these questions? You've come out here to cause trouble. I know your arrogance. I know your insolent heart, his older brother said to him. And David says, what have I done wrong? Keep asking questions. Some people will be upset with you, but keep asking questions. What's going on here? What's going on there? This is a battle array going on. And this guy is what? Well, give me some more information about who this enemy is. And the rumors get back to the king. And Saul hears about David in camp asking these ridiculous questions for a shepherd boy. And David says, I'm going to go out and kill him. The Lord has, and he tells about the story about the lion and the bear. The Lord's given me this gift to, in his name be able to defeat. I'm not afraid. This guy's taunting our God. We should be showing him that the Lord has brought us thus far and it will continue to be with us. How far has the Lord brought you? Well, obviously you're here in church physically now in time and space. But has the Lord brought you through struggles and battles? Has the Lord been with you through hard times? Has the Lord abandoned you or always been with you? When we abandon the Lord, we say, hey, I can't handle this anymore. The Lord, you're not with me. And the appearances, what can appear out there, can look terrible and make us scared to stay with the Lord. The appearances out there can look giant and make us afraid that we can't defeat the enemy. With the Lord's help, we always can. The spiritual enemies. With the Lord's help, we always can. The rumor comes back to Saul. Saul says, okay, here's my armor. David tries on his armor. Now, Saul was head and shoulders above everybody else, right? That's why he was chosen. They wanted a king like everybody else. Let's find the tallest guy we can get. The Lord chose Saul because they were just looking for externals. Saul, it's a great step to have here. Saul was head and shoulders above everybody else. So he was a big guy, a big man, a warrior, a fighter. And David comes to him, and we don't know how big David was. It doesn't talk about him being big. He became a man of war because he continued to fight after this battle. But he says he was a ruddy youth. So, when we're 12 and 14 and 16 or whatever, we're not often as big as we're going to be at 22 or 25 or 30. Okay, so he was growing, and he was not a boy, just a tiny kid. But Saul put his armor on him, and David kind of put it on and went, no, I'm not going to work. One size does not fit all, right? Just because it's your armor and it's going to work for you, David said, that's not my armor and it's not going to work for me. He just needed a little. He needed all the faith he had from the Lord, and then he needed a little. He needed a few things, a few other things other than a sword, no sword here, no javelin, no spear, no shield, no plate of armor, none of that stuff. And then you think of the drama of David coming out with his stick. Now, I don't necessarily think it would have to have been a shepherd's crook. He had walked with these supplies, so maybe it's just a hiking stick or something to walk through the wilderness when it's rugged. It's good to have a walking stick. And what did What did Goliath say? You come at me with a stick. What do you think I am, a dog? You're going to push off like, look, Goliath, you got the wrong idea about David. He's not coming out with a stick to like hit you with it like you're a little dog. You know, Goliath thinks he's so strong and powerful because he's beat all the people before him in his life. No. So it says David had a pouch. He took 5 smooth stones from the brook, and he put them in the pouch, and he approached Goliath with his sling. Do not worry, I'm not putting a stone in this sling and demonstrating how effective it can be. It's just for demonstration purposes only. Now, I've skipped stones, and I know I look for stones that are actually not very centrifugal, or like a ball. But you want, if you're going to throw a stone at somebody, you want to be kind of round so it doesn't, I'm not even going to start swinging this around. I want to really badly, and I did when there weren't any people here. But lest something go wrong, that's all he came. And we can think, what's the drama of this? Is Goliath off there shooting javelins? He's come down to the battlefield. His armor bearer has come with him. Has he brought a bunch of spears and javelins and swords? Or just 1 or 2 or none? I mean, just one? So if he throws his javelin or his spear, is that it? Or can you imagine David approaching the brook and he's getting swords at him? I don't know. It doesn't say. If it were a Hollywood film, there'd be swords coming. Swords. There'd be spears coming at him continuously, and he's dodging them while he's down here. We don't know, but it could be that dramatic. It could just be that as he's approaching, Goliath's far off, and he reaches down, and he picks up the 5 smooth stones. These 5 smooth stones. You've got them. I've got them. David got them. They're smooth stones because they've been in the brook, living water. The living water of the Lord's truth flowing through your life has given you the ability to have the 5 smooth stones. They're smooth because they've been having water of life running over them. You've had your experiences in life. You've learned the truth. You've tried to apply the truth. You've lived the truth, and you know what truths work for you. I hope you do. David knew what worked for him. You know that when you become angry, you should do what? Curse the Lord? Why do I have anger again, Lord? I wish you would just fix me. Or you say, I need to stop and breathe. I just need to breathe 10 breaths. I don't know what you do. Or you have arguments going on in your head about what somebody said or whatever. What do? Do you get into the bathtub and take a long bath? Calgon, take me away. You need to know what it is that works for you so that the spiritual enemies within don't overwhelm you. And when we're struggling, we need to just be able to say, halt, am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? What works for you? Do you need to go out and take a run? Just get some exercise. Do you need to pick up a book and Zoom or call a child or a grandchild and read them a story? Something will take you away from the fight inside your head, something will defeat the enemy. And that's what these 5 smooth stones represent. And in some cases, you have to directly apply the cold, hard truth that you've lived to the spiritual enemy. And all this landscape, of course, is within you. Don't think I'm talking about shooting somebody out there, hurting somebody out there because they're my enemy. We spiritually are talking about our own sense of pride, sense of self-intelligence, love of dominion or control, that you have to apply these things within yourself to realize when you're angry or you're thinking you've got all the answers or you think the world is crazy. But when you think that somehow you've got to have all this energy towards these things, these giants that you can't possibly conquer, don't believe that. Believe that the Lord will supply you with the truth and especially the energy and love to go out and conquer and defeat the insanity of Goliath. Goliath was a champion of fools. There's a saying that I've heard recently that says it's easier to fool somebody than it is to convince them that they've been fooled. Somebody said it was Mark Twain that said it. It wasn't Mark. It was somebody way back in the 14th century. He said it about some people talked about the people being fooled by leaders or by some people. Another quote is that it's easier to hoodwink than to unhoodwink. Hoodwink or bamboozle. It's easier for us to be fooled by our own sense of self-intelligence than oftentimes it is to take us out of that foolishness, that insanity. And what does it take? We need to be sometimes hit right in the forehead in our egos about what really works, what the Lord really wants us to do. We can become defensive, we can become angry, we can become lashing out at others because of what's going on. And what we really have to do is see within ourselves, what should I do to be the best neighbor I can? And how can I look for the helpers? As Mr. Rogers says, look for the helpers in times of struggle. Reach out to somebody who could understand what you're struggling with and provide you with some comforting words, some ideas from the Word or from their life experience. This is how I handle this. David looked like he was going out there all on his own, right? He's the fifth thing. He had these tools, but he took the Lord with him, and we never go anywhere without the Lord. And the Lord's always with us. As insignificant as we might feel, as huge as the enemies in our life might be inside of our minds or outside of us, we always have the Lord with us. David was a shepherd, and the Lord says he is our shepherd. We don't need to be afraid or want. We walk through the valley of the shadow of death. He is always with us. Amen.